Temperamentals has an extremely serious side to it. It also is extremely entertaining and very funny, but at the same time, underneath the core of that is a very important message, which is absolutely what you guys talk about as well.
It was interesting because when Derek and I first started doing the radio show, we thought of it as this entertaining thing, and then it was about a year into it that I turned to Derek and I said, I know you don't really realize this, but our show is a form of activism. And what it was doing was, we're a national radio show, and you can hear us on Sirius, you can hear us on XM, but you can hear us in a small town in Nebraska or in a large city. It didn't really matter where you were at. You found a sense of community through the radio show.
People are able to reach us from where they are.
Right.
And I think it's so much more important that people within the community have an access point where they can share their voice and have it be heard. There are certain things that happen. I think, Prop 8 in California, there was such a groundswell of upset among people in every part of the country. And when California voters rejected gay marriage, it really sent a signal to a lot of people that maybe things hadn't gone as far as they had hoped it had.
I feel like the gay community has gotten very complacent.
Mm-hmm.
When you turn on TV and you see gay characters on television and these wonderful characters that are beloved by all the cast members, you forget that there are still very serious challenges that we face within our country. There are still Matthew Shepherds being murdered all across the country all the time. We forget that there are still states that have horrendous laws on the books, and I get angry sometimes because here we are on this great network and we have all this support around us, but we have to remember that things are not as great as we would like to think that they are, and we get complacent, and we have to remember there's still work to be done. And one of the things we encourage our listeners to do is get active, whether it be talking to the people in their community, talking to their friends, coming out.
When you think about sort of the period of the play and what was happening for people and how brave it was to step forward and talk about being gay and to be open about it at a time when it was like a horror movie, the way that homosexuality was being portrayed to people. The work that the Mattachine Society did was so important, and part of this sort of tying to the Communist Party, I think, did have sort of an early root, as you said, but later on it really became a political tactic more than anything, of continuing to tie the scare of homosexuality to the scare of communism.
As we sort of refer to in the play, the Mattachine, what it stands for exactly, I'm not sure literally, but I know that the Mattachine tradition goes back to the Middle Ages, to the idea of the fool as an archetype, as in celebrations and so forth. And Mattachine was a French word that that referred to the traditions of celebration and cross-dressing and so forth, going all the way back from the Middle Ages all the way through Native American culture that in Harry's day. So he took that phrase, used that phrase, it did not mean homosexual, and used it as his choice of a word for his new organization.
I remember the first time I was aware of it was I just saw newsreel footage of the guys in suits marching in Washington.
Yes.
Now this was not this group. This was like the offshoot. But they were the first ones to kind of march with signs in Washington. They had the suits on, and I was so arrested by that because it was in the '60s, I believe, when that happened. And that was the first time I ever heard the Mattachine Society. Again, this was kind of the slightly watered down version than what Harry Kay and the men founded. But that was the first time I had heard of them. And then, of course, doing the play, working on it with John, we all did so much more research. And there's a couple of books about Harry Hay and the Mattachine Society, and he's featured in the Before Stonewall, the documentary, The Word Is Out. These great documentaries that are out there that they're all featured.
There's also a documentary that I believe PBS produced called Hope Along the Wind that features, it's his story, Harry Hay's story, which I think, John, is that what Mattachine is translated into, Hope Along the Wind? Is that correct, or you don't know?
Well, the Mattachine, that was because of the whole Mattachino. There's people who wore masks, and they were hiding what was really going on. The whole point of Mattachine was that they were doing these comical things on the outside, but on the inside there was a serious political message that actually was going on.
Thank you.
It's interesting to me, even though there's a large gay audience that it comprises a big part of our audience every night, that people don't know this particular story. That man started as, that the evolution to become that started with a married man in a conservative suit in the early 50s trying to make his way. I said to John and I said to Jonathan when we started to work on it that if his story as a life goes from A to Z, our play concentrates on his story from A to E. And then we leap forward to the end. And so that's always interesting because even though we have very sympathetic audiences, gay-friendly audiences, you get the sense every night that they don't know this. They don't know this particular story. It's a huge hunk of history that I didn't know this early part of the Mattachine Society, and that's what's sort of exciting about it to me. You feel like it's a new play with a new story, and that's exciting. It's tangible every night.